No, we're live. Oh. All right. And we are live. And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, if you are here on the call, kindly give us a shout out. Please drop messages on Discord, inform your friends that the class is live and we are good to go. So just drop your messages on Discord. So drop. Hi, we welcome on board. Good evening. Hello, Will. Can you hear me? Hi, Will. Can you hear me? Okay, Ella, if you can hear me, kindly let me know so that I know I'm not speaking to myself.
Oh yeah, I can hear you. Loud and clear. I think it is
Okay, all right
muted.
then. Okay, Will, you can go ahead to unmute yourself. So welcome, guys. Please drop a message on your Discord server to get more people to join this class. We need more people on the class. So drop messages on your Discord channel to get more people to join the class. So Will, please can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you. Hello, Will. I think this is
Yeah, sorry. I was having issues hearing you guys earlier, so I just figured out to make it work. Sorry for that.
all right. Thank you so much. Okay, that's fine. So welcome, Will. Good evening. So hello, guys. Okay, we have quite a number here. We'll be starting once it's 8:04. A quick intro about your instructor for tonight. Your instructor is Will Apuli. He's going to be teaching you that's typography in web development. He's also a senior software engineer. So I believe you have a short time doing this class and learning a lot. So Will, over to you. Floor is all yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Bill, as announced earlier. A senior software engineer, and I I do both front end and back end software engineering. The programming languages I use for generally JavaScript, Go, and Python. Those are the three languages I use. And today I'll be teaching you guys typography, forms, and typography images and forms. So I'm going to I'm going to open share my screen, and we can start immediately, right? Okay, so share screen. Okay, window. Uh, let's see. My sharing options are very limited. I think I just have to share my entire screen. That might would work. So, I don't know if my screen can be seen.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. Uh, uh, give me a sec.
We can see. Yeah, we can.
Okay. So all right. So I'm gonna create a new file here quickly. I'm gonna call it index.html, and so it's going to be typography, images, and fonts, right? So let's quickly. So first, let's start with fonts, all right? Um, I'm going to create a header. Um, um, First of all, the typography. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but when it comes to typography in HTML, there are basically three major ways text are being represented in HTML, and they are through headers, paragraphs, and links. However, the ones we're going to be looking at today are going to be headers, paragraphs, and we're going to be looking at styling generally fonts in HTML. So basically, um, when it comes to headers, just like when you create Word document or you create or you write generally, with headers we have over six. We have something similar to that in programming, and with headers we have over six of them. So the the various
Hi,
headers
Will.
that we hello.
Okay, yeah. Hi, Will. Sorry, that was me. I'll need you to zoom in on your screen a little bit so that the student can see it. It's not visible.
Okay, I'll do so.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, so uh, is this better? Is this better?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so okay, all right. So when we have headers, we in HTML we have six of them. So they are you can access them using H1 through 6. And uh, when we use H1 through 6, the first thing you will notice when viewing these headers is that their sizes are quite different. However, their sizes don't represent the sizes does not represent what's when to use them, because generally whenever you want to style your headers you could always use CSS to change the font sizes. So when using a specific header, it's not expected that you are to use them because of their sizes. However, the headers you use them based on their level of importance. In semantic HTML, headers generally are more important. You use them based on the level of importance. For example, in a single HTML page or a single web page, it's expected to just have just one header. The reason is because that should be like you can't if you're writing an actual letter or document, you generally just have one supreme header, and that is what H1 represents. And once you are creating, let's say, and it's very important in applications like a blog website and all that stuff. So having just one header is really, really important for semantic HTML. However, the other headers you could you could use them as you wish. You could have them repeat each other severally, and the order at which they are presented presented doesn't really matter. The only one that actually matters is when it comes to do with the H1. So basically, you could have an H1 like this, for example, and uh, for example, let's say this is the H1 of the in your web page, and with H2, you could decide to say, okay, H2 can be typography, you get, and you can have the H3 be something like, let's say, something simple, let's say classwork, and you could have a H4 for something like an assignment. Then you could have a repetition of this again. You could have a repetition of this, but this time around, you could give it images. You get, so basically the point here is that when working with headers, the headers you use should be based on the level of importance. So as you could see, this header, this is like the most important thing to help search engine bots and even readers to understand that this web page is all about typography, images, and fonts. However, this section has to do with typography, this section has to do with images, and so on and so forth. And generally, when having sections like this, it's generally good to separate them with a div or a section. And so if I to implement that quickly here, is to uh, so we could implement that using a section. And yeah, so with this, we have like a section, and you could see in this section, we have like the typography arranged in this manner. And we could have also like a paragraph here, and we have like a paragraph here, and you could have the classwork assignments or whatever. So basically, that's how you should use H1 elements and paragraph. H1, a header tags rather. So they should be arranged in level of importance or used in level of importance, and you should have just one H1 in a page. And if you are to combine various header tags, it's better to group them in a section to make your HTML more semantic. And in each section, the most important tags should always come. You should always arrange your content or your header tag based on level of importance within the section. So now, another form of typography in HTML is a paragraph. So I'm going to generate if a word, let's say 50 words here. And in this word, let's say I want to do something very simple with this. Let's say I want to emphasize this. I could wrap this word with, I could wrap this with the emphasize, which is a symbol for EM. I could wrap it. And once you do, what happens is by default it becomes italic, as you can see here. So this is the emphasized word, it becomes italic. But that doesn't mean when you want to use whenever you want to italic something in your HTML, you should use emphasize. No, but generally it means whenever you have this, you're writing the content and you want if you want to emphasize a specific point. Let's say you have an article and you want to emphasize something important in an article, you could wrap whatever you want to emphasize inside the emphasize tag, and it could be a group of words, it could be a single word, but the point is doing so. And something similar to emphasize is actually the strong attribute. And the major difference between emphasize and strong is most times you see it's just like English language. Emphasize generally you do that to prove it when you are trying to make to prove a point. So if you're writing a discussion kind of article or something like that, your web page is like a discussion or something, and you want to prove a point, you could emphasize, or especially things you are repeating. There's this statement called repetition for emphasis. So especially things you're repeating, you could use emphasize for the emphasize tag to show to make the user to make the user know you're laying a little bit of emphasis on a specific thing. However, strong, it's used for importance. So let's say you are writing something and you want to let this user know that, okay, note something or this is very important. You could put that in a strong. Then sometimes when people read, they tend to mark various points in the book or whatever they are reading. You could also do something similar in HTML using the mark syntax as well. So basically, it's used to highlight specific part of a paragraph that you want to. That's like a main point or something, just like you would in if you're reading like a book or something. So basically, these are um, various ways in which you can use typography properly in HTML. Then there are some reserved keywords in HTML. So for example, these words are referring to as HTML entities. All right. So let's say you want to put a greater than sign and a less than sign before and after this statement. All right. So if you do something like this and, uh, and this, it's not going to work. The reason is because the greater than and the less than sign symbol are reserved in HTML. So in order to fix that, you use the and symbol, and LT represents lesser than, then a semicolon for that, and then you could down do your greater than sign. The same thing, and symbol, then GT for greater than sign and semicolon. So these are HTML entities. So where this comes into importance are things like the dollar sign, the if you're writing and you want to represent things like alpha, beta for mathematical scenarios, you could do that. And if you want to get a list of HTML entities, you could just search for HTML entities, and once you do that, if you visit this directory web page here, you can see there's like this HTML entities here. If you click on it, uh, yes, there's a HTML entity list. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So this should be it. Okay, so this is the link. These are the list of the various HTML entity. So this is the one we looked at just now, the greater than and the less than. There are a whole lot of them. So as you can see, the copy symbol, especially in the footer of a web page. This is the yarn for a currency and all that stuff. So basically, when you want to use them, that's how you use them. Now, when it comes to fonts, the another important thing with fonts is styling them, and to do that in HTML, so let's say we have a header here, and which one? All right. So let's say we have a header, and we have a paragraph, and we want to style this. Well, we could go to various places to acquire fonts for to acquire different fonts that we font files that we could use to style our HTML. So when it comes to fonts, there are basically three types of fonts that is being used mostly in the web, and they are the sans, the serif, sans serif, and mono space. So serif fonts are basically fonts that have sharp edges. For example, this is actually a sans serif font. Here, Mac computers by default use a sans serif font, but basically they look very similar to serif fonts, but they just look a little more prettier. So if you go to Google Fonts, for example, fonts, and we click on the first link, fontsgoogle.com, and under the under the categories, what's going to happen is we are going to select the specific ones we want. So I'm going to unselect every other one, and I'm just going to leave serif fonts. So now with this, we just have the serif fonts that are available. And if you can see with all of them, they have these very sharp edges. As you can see here and here, they all serif fonts tend to have this kind of similarities with them, whereby they have like very sharp edges. And the reason is because, and they are mostly used for more official stuff. And some of the popular ones we have in the sans serif fonts, we have fonts like uh, uh, Times New Roman, yes, and it's generally used for official purposes. So that's one. Then we also have a sans serif. So if we check out the sans serif fonts, you can see, unlike serif, this one is much more modern and much more prettier, but they still follow the same aesthetics that looks very similar to that of serif fonts. You get so, and basically like in macOS, it's the default font for macOS actually it's sans serif font, and monospace. Now monospace is a different story. Now why it's called monospace? It's because they basically all the fonts, regardless of the alphabet or the letter, they all have the same width. So as you can see, let's say for example, for the serif font, you can see letters like I are smaller compared to letters like N. However, with monospace, it's not like that. Monospace, every letter has the same width, and generally, some people tend to prefer monospace when using fonts because it makes design calculations when it comes to fonts a little bit much more easier to do. However, most times the monospace fonts are more rugged and they have more of a programming feel to it. So most terminals or command line tools use them a lot. Most developer websites use them a lot as well. So basically, they are much more. They are just most monospace fonts are just much more rugged. All right. So that's for the different types of font. So now, embedding font into your application is quite easy. If you go to font scroll, yeah. So in the homepage of font scroll, you could see this is a website where we can get like a lot of free fonts, and you could search for fonts as well. So let's search for something like, let's say, Open Sans. All right. Let's say we have this font, Open Sans. So this is the Open Sans font. All right. So what's going to happen is that let's see, you're going to download it. All right. So if you click on this download button, we'll be able to download the font. So I'm going to save this font here, documents, teaching, HTML. All right. So I'm going to save it here, and I'm going to unzip it quickly. So if we go navigate to the part of the where the fonts are, so let's unzip it. Okay. So now when we unzip the font, something you have noticed is the fact that they are all in this T, TTF files. So if you want this font in your computer, whatever computer you're using, if you just double click on them, you should be able to have like a window, something similar to this, where you could just install them and then programs like your Microsoft Word and stuff like that will be able to make use of those fonts. Um, However, if you notice, these fonts, they're kind of like large in size. So you have like 225 kilobytes for the bold, for the regular, you have 217 kilobytes and all that stuff. So this font is kind of like really large. So when using fonts, there are the various font formats. However, the one that is recommended for the web are two formats, which are WOF. There are these two formats. They are called WOF and WOF version 2. So for us to be able to use WOF uh, on our project, all we have to do in this same website, we can go to font generator, and in this place we could upload our font. So let's select the font. So under Open Sans, so let's go back, navigate to where the fonts are. So under Open Sans, just for the purpose of this learning, I'm just going to select two of them, the bold and the regular. Oh, sorry. I'm going to select the bold and the regular. And I'm going to select optimal when it comes to how the generation should be. And I'm going to accept, and I'm going to download the kit. This is going to take a little bit of time, depending on internet speed and all that stuff. But let us be patient a bit and get it downloaded. All right, so one has completed. Let's see, the second one is about 25%. Okay, now they are both completed, and we can download the font. All right, so we are still going to save them here. We're still going to save them here. And if we go back to our folder and unzip this font we just downloaded, let's see, they are they're actually in. Let's get where did I say? Okay, yeah. So yeah, so if we unzip the font, you can see we now have the WOF files. And if you look at the WOF files, it's just 26 kilobytes. And if you look at the WOF 2.0, it's 19. So it's way lesser, always smaller in size. So generally, when you're using fonts in the web, it's generally advised um, to use a WOF file. So what's going to happen? I'm going to, on my VS Code quickly, I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it assets. And inside this asset, I'm going to create a new folder called fonts. And in this fonts folder, I'm going to create a new folder called Open Sans. Right? And I'm going to move this these font files we have here. I'm going to move them to the Open Sans folder. Sorry, my computer is slow. There's like a ton of things running, and sorry about that. So the folder, the fonts, have completely moved them, and this HTML file is not supposed to be here. I'm just gonna get rid of it. Then this Open Sans file here, I'm still gonna get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. Same goes for the zip files. So I'm going to get rid of them as well. I'm going to move the CSS file. I'm going to move the CSS file to like the main root of the project. And then I'm going to get rid of the open sans, this folder as well. Okay. All right. So now in this CSS file, we have this code here. So what does this code do, right? So this code, basically, it's registering the fonts we've created. So we could either link the CSS file to our page, or we could just copy it. So I'm going to create a link to the CSS file, and it's going to be sheet CSS. And now there's some changes we have to make. And one of the changes I want to make in this file is the font family name. It's, as you can see, it's having Open Sans bold, Open Sans regular. I don't want that. So I just want it to just be Open Sans. And I want this behavior whereby whenever I want the bold, if I set my CSS to bold, then it will automatically switch between the bold and the regular. So in order to do that, I'm just going to change this to Open Sans. So, and then this font as well, I'm going to change it to Open Sans. However, let's just format it to make everything look nice. However, there's one more changes I want to make here, which is the path. So since we renamed the folder, the path has obviously changed. So we have to update it as well. So in this case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to highlight all these things and update all the paths at the same time. So the path is going to be dot slash, which is assets, fonts, Open Sans, and under Open Sans, we have the various fonts. The font style. So as you can see, the font style here, this represents the bold Open Sans, right? So what we have to do here for font style, we just have to, for font width, you just have to make it what? Bold. And for the other ones, you just leave it. So with this, we've registered the font size, the font in our browser, and now we can make use of them in our code base by simply going to our browser, and let's say we create a style sheet. So let's say style, and sorry, style. And in our style, we're going to say the H1 element and the paragraph element. We want to give it the H1 and the paragraph element. We want to give them a font family of Open Sans, right? So once we do so, if you notice, voila, our fonts has changed to the font size registered. Now I want to bring something to your attention quickly. If I should move this font to underneath, what's it called? If I should move the font underneath this style, it would not work properly. So the reason it's oh, okay. For some reason it's working, but generally it's expected that your fonts should always be at the top of your page for your CSS because you have to register them before using them. So now back to the web fonts we are talking about. So if you go back to fonts, google.com, and we want to Sorry, the internet is quite slow. So if we want to apply fonts from the Google website, all we have to do is we select the font we want, for example, Roboto. Once we select that font, we could click on we just download the font if we want, or we could just click on this plus and minus button. We get to add them to the fonts here. So as you can see, there's thin and there's italic that has been added here. And in with depending on the fonts we choose, like as you can see from my browser, I've chose like these three fonts. And on our Google link here, Google gives us like a link which we could use to we'll just paste this link to get to the font. So once we copy it and go to our browser, after the page, if we click on, if I paste the link here, I'm going to make an edit to this link. So I just need one font from both fonts. Instead of having like three of them, I'm just going to take one. So the one I'm going to take is, let's just say IBM, this IBM, this IBM font. So what's going to happen is from here down to, from here down to, okay, here I think there's the next font family. Let me enlarge this so it's easier to navigate. Okay, so yeah, so from here down to this upper sign, I'm going to get rid of it. So we just have the IBM font, and with that, so this pre-connect you are seeing here is basically Google's way of optimizing requesting of this font. And if we should click on this URL, so you should click on this URL, watch what's going to happen on the browser. So as you can see, it's doing exactly what we did earlier with our font. The only thing that is different is that the width of the font size is being set, the default width. And now there's this property called font display. So let's talk about font display quickly. The font display property is actually the behavior at which our font is going to be loaded within our web application. So for example, there are different there's different display property. So we have font display. So font display, if you click on Control and spacebar or Command or spacebar on Mac, Control and spacebar on Mac, it will give you like options, but to display the option, but for some reason it's not bringing out the various options. So with font display, we have swap, we have optional, we have callback, and is it callback? Let's quickly Google them. Quickly, font display options. So nothing changed. Okay, let's just open the first link. I just thought I'll be able to just see the list of them quickly. So we have optional. Okay, yeah. So look at them. Fallback, not callback. Yeah. So this is auto, block, swap. So now the way your browser handle this is very different. So let's quickly explain how this one works. So auto will leave your browser to decide. So for example, Chrome as at this moment uses swap. However, tomorrow the new version of Chrome may use something different based on whatever web standard is popular at that point in time. So basically, auto automatically makes your browser makes the device choose which of them to use. You get. Then we have block. So what block does, it will prevent the font from displaying until it has completely downloaded the font before displaying it. Then swap, what swap does, it will display the default font in the user's browser, like in their computer. So if it's for Mac, you are looking, if it's for Windows, it's going to display Sigo UI, or some people call it Scott UI and all that. So basically, to display those fonts first, then next, after it has completely downloaded the current font, then it is going to replace it with whatever font you have downloaded. In our case, for example, we're going to replace it with the IBM font. Then for fallback, what fallback does is that it's going to download the font. However, it's going to download the font. However, when it's taking too much time to download the font, it's just going to stop there. It won't continue the download. It's just going to stop there, right? Why optional? What it does is that it will download the font, but on the first page load, it's not going to change the font. However, on your next page or subsequent loading, it's going to catch the already downloaded fonts so that you don't have to call them back again. So that's just basically the different options available with the font display property. So for you to use uh, for you to use so in your browser, when you're using Google Font, with this property here, you could change them to any of the desired effects. So if you say, for example, block, if you see, when our web page was loading, at first, there was no font, and before the font came in. So that's the behavior of a block has. So you could use it, you could use whatever you want to use. So that's the font property. Um, so you could use multiple fonts on a web page by just saying comma, then the name of the next font. So in our case, we have the if you go back to the Google font, if you see, in order to use the IBM font, which you could do you could just have to call this the display name here. If, for example, you don't know the display name, once you click on the link and look at the settings of the font, you should be able to see that. So in our font family, if we say, for example, IBM comes first, what happens is that the IBM font will be the major font in our browser before it will be what we use instead of the Open Sans font. So
I
we could
will.
try to use yeah.
Sorry, can you zoom in a bit? We have the students saying they can't still see your screen. Some complaints are just coming up.
Oh, it can't see the screen at this. Okay. Uh, let me zoom in again.
Okay,
Wow.
thank you.
Okay, so basically, let me close the terminal then. So basically, so we could use different fonts for we could use different fonts for practically different part of our web page. So we can make the header, for example, use the IBM, and the and the font family to use the Open Sans. So as you can see, you can see the clear difference between both fonts as we are using them right now. So um, this is basically fonts. Let me see my notes. What's next again? Okay. All right. So font sizing. Basically, when you can change the size of a font using the font size property. So if, for example, with our font, we said font size, we could say, for example, 1 rem. When we do that, let me just make it 2 rem so it will be clear. You can see it's very large. So the question is, what are the I don't know if you guys have done measurements before, but basically there are various measurement units in CSS. They are grouped into two measurement units. We have relative units and we have absolute units. So rem is a relative unit. So what is rem relative to? Rem is relative to the root font. So for example, this plugin I'm using right here to display to render whatever is on the screen right now, it's using the Chromium engine. And Chromium, the default font size, it's actually 16 pixels. So to prove to you that REM uses the value of the root font, in our HTML, I'm going to write a script here called HTML, and I'm going to change the root font size. Currently now it's 16 pixels. I'm going to just change it to 10. So I'm going to say font size, and I'm going to change it to 10 pixels. And see, the you can see the font has reduced, right? So basically, REM uses the root font size of your browser. Um, Generally, you see people doing things like either 100%, which is going to use 100% of whatever the root font size is, or some people want to make it 10%, so they'll do a calculation like 62.5%. You get, which is basically, if you do the calculation, which is 62.5. If you do the calculation, that's 62 62.5. If you multiply it by 16, it's going to give you 10. So some people do this. So basically, whatever you choose to do, whatever you choose to use, whenever you use REM values, what happens is it gives the relative, whatever font size is being used, it's going to be relative to the it's going to be relative to the size is going to be in relative proportion to whatever the root font size is. So let me show you what I mean. So if I open this stuff we'll be working on the browser, if I open it right now with my Chrome browser, and I go to inspect elements, and I go to inspect element, and under inspect element, if you look at this part of the screen, I don't know if you guys can see this part. Now it's going to be very difficult to zoom on this part of the screen. I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be very difficult. But basically, if you look at this part of the screen, if I click on this header, for example, you could see, if we go to text, you could see the number of fonts that is being used here. And if I click on this paragraph, you could see the number of fonts being used here. So on our paragraph, 2rem represents 220 pixels. You get, based on the fact that our root font is 10 pixels. So if I come here and remove this and comment on this code here, which is making it the root font 16 pixels instead of 10, if you look here now, you would see that the paragraph element font has increased to what? To size 32. So you could see why using REM values is important. So it's when you use REM values, it gives you the appropriate font, or the appropriate, what's it called? It gives you the appropriate pixel value for the specific device screen. Now the reason is because the number of pixels that are present in devices vary from devices to devices, regardless of whether they are of the same size. For example, my current pixel size, my current pixel size is actually twice the number of the normal size. Let me show you guys what I mean by this. So if I go to the settings of my laptop and I go to display, I go to display, I go to display. Is this sorry. Okay, so if I go to display, as you can see, these are various different sizes. Now, the current size right now, the current pixel size right now, as you can see here, is over a 1680 pixels, which is like 1680 pixels by 1850 pixels. I could set my display size to be this, which is a lower pixel size now, which is going to be 1440 by 900. And if I set it to the default one, which is like 1280 by 800, you could see the pixel size are different. Now, I'm just for the purpose of demonstrating that the font size that that is being used is based on the appropriate font size on your browser. If I go to my settings and under fonts, if I go to the settings in Chrome and I search for appearance, and under appearance, now under the font you can see it's medium. So if I change it to large, for example, and I go back to our web page, you could see the font size has increased to what? To 40 pixels. And this is because of the default browser settings I've used. So the rem values is calculating the appropriate amount of pixels to display based on the display. So that's why we advise people to use rem. And just for those who are curious, there's the difference between rem and m is that rem works with the root element all the time, which is going to be whatever the HTML or the body element values are, or the root element values are. Those are the three values that rem always work with. However, m works with parent values. So now let me just demonstrate that to you. So right now, the font is 62.5%. So just to make things easier, I'm going to make this font 8 pixels, right? 8 pixels, which is going to make everything much, much smaller. Right now, I'm going to create a body element. A body element. I'm going to write style for the body. And for this body, I'm going to give it a font size of 6 pixels. This is just for demonstration purpose. Now, if you see, you can see automatically our, because we use n, you could see that everything has become what? Smaller automatically. You get? However, if we should change the value to rem, it's going to become larger because now it's ignoring this body value and it's using what? The root element value, which is your HTML value. So that's the difference between rem and m. M uses the closest parent. You get? While rem uses the root element value. So now, many people tend to shy away from M because trying to keep track of parents can be very, very problematic, especially if you have a lot of nested elements in it. It's kind of like very problematic to work with M at that point in time. So basically, this is just a brief a very in-depth explanation on how fonts and how font work. Now, there's this one website I want to show you. It's called fontscale.com. Let's open it quickly. So this website, basically, what it does is that it gives us how our fonts are going to look like based on specific screen sizes. All right. So now, currently now, we are speaking. So basically, you can see it supports Google Font. So this base font is whatever we set in the root element. So if our root element is like 16 pixels, or for example, we say 10 pixels, you get. If we can choose any font, or any font that is available in Google Fonts, are available here. So let's look for the IBM one we took. Where's I? Who knows ABCD? When the I comes? All right, so you can see this is the IBM font we chose, right? So with this IBM font, we can decide to say, okay, we want to use a major, third, or perfect fourth, or whatever. But whatever you choose, it will give you like a visual representation of these sizes that you could use on your browsers. So if you have that, with that, you copy this size, and if you copy this size and we put it as the font size, so I'm going to change this back to 10 pixels, and I'm going to, for the font size of the H1, so for font size of H1, I'm going to change it to this value. You could see it's exactly the same height as the one we have here. So you could use this website as kind of like a guideline to pick appropriate font sizes that works very well within your application. All right. So we've spent majority of our time discussing fonts, and we were not able to talk about images. I really apologize for that. What is going to happen is before next week end, I'm gonna come up with a note and I'll send it to you guys to understand how to use images and forms. I'm sorry I could not go over it in this class. We have like 5 minutes left, so um, the truth is there's a lot to take in when it comes to fonts, images, and forms that are not very typical for us. I wasn't able to properly manage the 1 hour I was given to discuss all this stuff, so I'm sorry for that. So I'm going to leave the floor for open for questions. So if you have questions, you can ask me, and I'm willing to answer. Just a quick one. There's also some stuff about fonts that I still want us to talk about, and that is we're just going to go over them quickly, which is formatting of fonts. So I just want us to go over those ones quickly. It's not going to take time since uh, it's not going to take a ton of our time. So let's just go over those ones quickly so we have that fully covered. So formatting of fonts, there are various ways we could format fonts, and basically these are the list of ways in which we could format our fonts. So we have text alignment. The text alignment shows how we want to align our fonts on our web pages. So if you say text align, uh, you could choose various alignments. So there's center, there's justify, there's left, there's right. So generally, the most popular ones are either center or left. These are the most popular ones. And justify, generally people don't advise it because you could see there's now this like weird spaces between words and all that stuff. So that's one. Then there's this thing called text indent. So let's look at text indent. So text indent basically is putting a space before each paragraph. So in text indent, for example, if you say one rem, what's going to happen is that if you can see, there's like you just make it 10 so it be clearer. So you can see there's like this space before the paragraph. If you have multiple paragraphs, it's going to do that for each of the paragraphs. So let's say you are building a letter writing website that involves having to put indents. You now see how to do it, right? So next, we are going to look at text decoration. So text decoration is basically styles that we use to basically decorate our text. So text decoration, you have a ton of them. You have dotted, you have uh, line through, which like kind of like put like count a line stroke over the text. So basically, whatever you want to use, you could try them out to see how each of them works. Then you have white spaces, all right? So now white spaces are basically the spaces between words. So now there are two values we could use for white spaces. So if you say white spaces, and if I say control space, you can see the two values we could use. So we could say no wrap, or when you say no wrap, what happens is that there's not going to be any space between your words. So that's why you see that things are just elongated. However, this is also very good because we could do some cool trick with this. So let's look at some cool tricks we can do with this. For example, we can try to give our font like a width. So this is a very good thing. When giving your font width, it's better to use what is it called? CH. So let's say I'm going to give our font a width, and I'm going to give it a width of 50 CH. Now, in in um in programming in English, it's only saying a paragraph should not be more than 50 to 70 letters. You get. So using CH, it means basically CH is like the number of zeros, basically, uh, that can be specified. So letters like I and O uh, basically are like very small. So the number of zeros it can take. So in this our case, we specified that our font should be 50 ch, meaning the each character should not more than 50. So it's going to fall between 50 to 70, that range, based on the letters. So if our letters have things like I and our font is not like a monospace font, if it's more like a sans serif or a serif font, it will fall between those range. And I want to show you something. If you put like a border around here, let's say border 2 pixel solid yellow, you put a border around our text, you could see that this is where our font ended. You could see it ended here. So with this, with our font being this way, we can decide to say, okay, we can set the overflow property. So the text overflow property, we could change it to what? Ellipse. So, and there's one more property. There's one more property. Uh, Text overflow, white space. No, not wrap, no wrap. There's one more property we are supposed to add. Let me see. Uh, okay, let me quickly Google this. So, uh, let's see what I'm mistaking here. So, okay, good. So finally, we need to set the overflow property. So that's what I was missing. So we say overflow to hidden. All right. So with hidden. All right. So with this, if you look at our text right now, there's not a dot 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 at the end. So this is a very good way to wrap out our word. To wrap our text using dot. You get. So now this line. So what I've showed you right now is how we could we could style our fonts, right? So there's also something we could do with our font, and that is put to affect the space between each word. So the space between here and here, we could affect that as well using the line height property. So if we say line height, we could set it to whatever value we want. It could be 1 rem, for example. Or so when you say 1 rem, it's going to put just 1 rem of space between those stuff. You could say 10, you could see it rather. But generally, the best one uh, to use is a 0.5, is a pointer kind of value without any indicator. So what it's going to do is that it's going to add 1.5% of the original space to the existing space. You get, if we use the same thing just like that. So with this, we don't it don't have to be explicit. So based on the device pixel density and the way the browser interprets the space between each text, is going to give the appropriate space required if we use this liner property. So now the other one we are going to look at is also word spacing. So word spacing. So word spacing is the space between two words. So we could say, for example, 2 rem, for example, and you can see between each word, there's like 2 rem of space. So then finally, we have, we are going to look at letter spacing, all right? So this is the last form of typography we're going to look at when it comes to text. So we have letter spacing. letter spacing, we can put, for example, 2 rem. So in the header, I'm going to do this one in the header so it's clearer to see. So in the header, I'm going to put letter spacing of, let's say, 2 pixels. So let's make it rem value so that it's easier to see. So you can see the space between the header right now. So you might have seen some website that has like space, very weird spaces between each word. So this is how they achieve. So these are the ways we could use. This is all about typography when it comes to HTML and CSS. You could obviously we've looked at uh, during in case you guys have forgot, there's also a font style attribute which we could use to change the font style between italic, bold. You get, so there's italic, there's bold. You get, which makes the font a little bit thicker. But the reason why it's not being missing here is because of the font width property of the current um, of our current font. So if we change the font width, I'll give it like a very good width of, let's say, 700. You can see the boldness now comes into play. And note, since we already started our font, it will you can see it automatically is going to be switching between either the sans serif and the it's going to be switching between the regular and the bold automatically within itself. You get, so when we use say 100 width, for example, it's not going to take the bold font because 100 is not really bold. However, when we change to 700, it's bold, and then it's going to be applying the different fonts that have been specified here. So basically, that's all about typography with HTML. I've gone over time right now. I'm going to work on a note on images and fonts and send it to you guys uh, uh, during next week so that you guys could read about it and learn more about it. So, is there any questions? I know I said this before, but now I'm open to
Yeah,
questions or
thank
any
you,
more.
Will. Okay, yeah, we have questions. So I'll be displaying the questions on the screen, so you can just pick them from your screen.
Okay, so the first one, say what's the name of the website we could get fonts from? So we have fontsgoogle.com for that's one. Then the other one is Font Scroll. So I don't know if I is there a way I could send those fonts, but we have fontsgoogle.com. Or you could just search for Google font. Then Font Scroll is another place where we could get fonts. So any other question? How can we make fonts responsive? Yeah, we could make fonts responsive using media queries. All right. Okay, let me just do that quickly. So if I share my screen right now, share screen, and let's go to the code. So let's say we want to make our fonts. I'm going to do something quick right now. This font size, I'm going to make it. Uh, I'm going to make it. Let's say, where's the font size? I'm going to make it 0.5 rem, which is small. This is just for learning purposes, please. So let's say on 200 on let's say on a mobile screen of, let's say on a mobile screen we want it to be this small, but let's say on a tablet, which is like say 700 pixels, we want it to be bigger. We could do responsiveness. So let's say media query. So at media. So for this screen, we are going to say main width. So I'm using mobile first design here. So main width, width, and 700 pixels. You get, and I want at 700 pixels, I want the font of the font to increase by, so font size. So instead of setting an absolute value for your font, this is where percentage comes into play. So you could say I want this font size to be what? Let's say 200%. All right. So what's going to happen is whenever we are at this width, the font size is going to increase for this paragraph. It's going to be increased by 200%. Let's check it out. So I'm going to copy this URL and open it on the browser quickly. And when I inspect element, so you can see it's small right now. I'm going to inspect element. So currently now, the font size is 0.5. Media query is not kicking in. Why? Okay, my width spelling is wrong. So I'm sorry about that. So now, if you look, if you can see the font is already bigger already. So this 0. Something is small. So let's make it 1.5 quickly. So this is 1.5. So if I should click on this responsive section, if I click on this responsive section and I choose responsive and I say the width of the browser should be, let's say, 600, and I'm going to increase this by 200% so that you can see it properly. So the width now is 600 pixels. So if you look at the font right now, you can see it's using this 1.5 rem, which is equivalent to 15 pixels right now, right? But if I should change it to, let's say, 701 pixels, 701 pixels, sorry, 701 pixels, and increase it a little bit. So you can see now that it's taking this font size, which is 200% of the font, and so this 200%, it's taking 200% of the root font. You understand? Which is percentage is always it's always based on the root element. So uh, 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 which if you look at the initial value for fonts, so if you look at the initial value for font here, you can see it's 1 rem. You get, so this is the initial value. Sorry, not 1 rem there. Let's see. So 200%. This 200% is supposed to be 200% of this one. But regardless, you could use rem values. So you could say you want it to be 2 rem. You get, so with media query as well, you could rem. So with media query, you could basically increase your font based on a specific screen size. So that's how you can make your font responsive. All right. So next question. Sorry, next question.
Okay, think that the
Okay,
okay,
those are the
yes,
two
this
questions.
one question, this last question.
Okay, so Sai, is it possible to style the first letter of our text? Yeah, it's actually possible to style the first letter of your text. Uh, um, what's it called? It's to start the first letter. It's something that uh, we could do with CSS. Um, but I don't know if you guys have seen this before. So it's I don't know if you guys are aware of what we call pre-pseudo and pseudo classes. So I'm gonna just write the code quickly. Oh, sorry, I'm not sharing my screen. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that quickly. All right. So if we go to this font, and what we can do under this paragraph, we could target, we could say P, then first letter, and we could style this first letter however we want. So we could say font size, 3 rem, and color color green, right? Yeah. So as you can see, this is how it started the first letter of our word. So this is a pre-pseudo selector. So it's pre-pseudo selector, and this pre-pseudo selectors, you have two types. You have element selectors and you have classes selector. So this is an example of a of an element selector, and how you could differentiate between element and classes selector is this. So let me show you quickly. Um, uh, if we go to the browser, inspect element, and we we select this word here. So on the picker, if you select this word here, sorry, let's select again. So when you select this word here, you would see that when you select this word here, you would see that there's no visual feedback, right? There's no visual feedback on the there's no visual feedback on the CSS. That's how you know that it's a pre-pseudo class. But if it's a pre-pseudo element, then you'll be able to see something like kind of like a class that has been created automatically by the browser during runtime. So that's how you differentiate between pre-pseudo class and pre-pseudo element. But basically, this is how you could style the first letter of words of your words uh, in HTML and CSS. Okay, so I think that's the last question, right? Okay, so what's the difference between pixels, rem, and percentage? All right, so pixels is basically the individual pixels on your screen, while rem, pixels is basically the individual pixels on your screen, which is the uh, your screen. Every time you look at your screen, there's like small. Your screen is made up of small pixels, right? So pixel values are like they are they work when you set pixel values with font. It's going to be taking the pixel value of your screen. So now the disadvantage of using that is that two devices may look the same. For example, the iPhone 4 and the iPhone 3, they have the same size. However, they have different pixel density. And because of that, like the number of pixels in iPhone 4 is twice the number of pixels in iPhone 3, even if they have the same size. So when you use pixels to style text at that point in time, what happens is that it will basically it will basically it will basically be fixed. So if you say 10 pixels, it will be 10 pixels of whatever the iPhone 10 is, or 10 pixels of whatever the iPhone 3 is. You get? So that's how it works. However, RAM values are more dynamic. So they calculate the equivalent number of pixels based on the pixel density. You get? So if, for example, based on the root font, sorry, so if your browser is, let's say, like we did earlier, if your browser is like 16, your browser is using 16 pixel font, or your root font is like 10 pixels font, RAM will calculate it will do 1 point. It's going to do 1.5 multiplied 1.6 multiplied by whatever your root font is, and that is how rent value works. Why percentage is basically doing your normal mathematical calculation of percentage. So let's say your root font is 20%, for example, it's 20 pixels. So what is 20% of what is 20% of uh what is 20% of 120% of, let's say, 2? 120% of 2, I think, is 2.4. You get? So that's how percentage work generally. It just does the normal mathematical calculation of percentage. I think this is there any other further questions? I think I have access to see any further questions. So we just end the class here today. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys next time. Right?
All right. Thank you so much, Will. It was nice having you here. I hope we learned a lot from you. Thank you so much. So, guys, this is Will. Thank you. I appreciate you for coming tonight for the class. And also, if you have questions and they were not answered here, please go ahead to ask them on your Discord, in your Discord room, and you get the answers. So, thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Will. Good night, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Bye.